At the end of July, the National Peace Conference met in Albany, New York. We're going to have coverage of it over the next few weeks. The conference met as the Afghan war was failing, the recession was starting its double dip, and Iraqi workers were increasingly under the gun of a viciously anti-union Iraqi government. The conference hall was filled with banners, both with anti-war slogans and others in defense of American Muslim rights.
So, how many of you were ever in your anti-war work called un-American or unpatriotic? So, I think the tables have turned in terms of the general public perception of what's going on now. I was at a hearing where it was chaired by Carl Levin, some of you might know from the Senate Appropriations, and they were talking about spending another $33 billion for this war. Some of us snuck out of the hearing for a rally that was going on the Capitol that were librarians. And the librarians were there saying, help, our libraries are in danger. We need the funds to keep the library open. We need the money to hire the librarians. And some of us had also just come back from the social forum. Raise your hand if you were at the social forum. Well, we know we were like shell-shocked after being in Detroit because that was like being in a war zone. So we go back in the hearing and there is Carl Levin saying that we got to spend another $33 billion for war. And some of us just couldn't contain ourselves anymore and said, that is downright unpatriotic and un-American. You are destroying this country. We need that money for our libraries. We need that money for our schools. We need that money to rebuild your city, Detroit. What are you doing? Bring those more dollars home. Yes. And that is the message that we have to get out loud and clear. And the country is ready for it. They are sick and tired of us spending all this money on bombing people overseas and creating more enemies instead of rebuilding America, which is the patriotic American thing to be doing. And so we need
Michael Eisenscher of U.S. Labor Against the War talked about the stern measures that the Iraqi U.S. occupation government is taking against Iraqi workers.
As I was introduced, I'm with U.S. Labor Against the War. And as you know, we have a rather special relationship with the Iraqi labor movement. We sent the first U.S. delegation to Iraq just months after the invasion in the fall of 2003, and brought Iraqi delegations here in 2005, 2007, 2009, and we also sent the delegation, which I was privileged to lead, to Iraq for an international labor conference in March of 2009. One of the Iraqi trade union leaders, who was the first to come to this country in 2005, is going to be with us this weekend. I'm not sure if he's here yet tonight. Is Amjad Ali? Amjad Ali. Amjad is a North American representative of the General Federation of Workers' Councils and Unions of Iraq and the Iraqi Freedom Congress, and you'll be hearing more from him in the workshops. Although the war in Afghanistan and the attacks in Pakistan have been the focus of a lot of attention of late, we can't forget that the illegal occupation of Iraq has not ended. And the withdrawal of combat troops next year, even if it is on schedule, will not end the occupation. It remains our responsibility to remove the boot of foreign occupation from the necks of the Iraqi people. And to make that point graphically clear, I want to share with you some deeply troubling recent developments that illustrate the urgency of that responsibility. Following the overthrow of Saddam Hussein, the U.S. kept in place Saddam's 1987 decree banning unions in public sector workplaces, fully 80% of all the jobs, including the oil industry. Even though the new Iraqi constitution requires the adoption of a basic labor law, and Iraq is also signatory to the ILO Convention 98 on collective bargaining, the newly elected government in Iraq continues to enforce that law and has added additional decrees, including freezing all union bank accounts and assets. More recently, the Iraq regime escalated that war by banning all foreign travel by union leaders without the express prior permission of the government, punitively transferring militant leaders of worker actions to remote locations 1,000 kilometers from their home and from their union base, and filing criminal charges against the two top officers of the Oil Workers Federation for undermining the Iraqi economy by opposing and actively organizing against privatization of oil resources.
Jesus Christ.
If they're convicted, they face 3 years in prison. Just this week, the Ministry of Electricity, which is now headed up by the Minister of Oil, issued another draconian decree. It prohibits all trade union activity and ceases all form of cooperation or communication with unions in all their workplaces. It directs management to help the police to enforce the closure of all union offices and the confiscation of their property. It orders all enterprises to take immediate legal action against anyone who threatens the use of force or causes any damage to public property, and it orders all departments and enterprises to repeal any benefits that the unions previously negotiated. This week, the armed forces of Iraq and the police raided all of the electricity union offices in the country. The workers of Iraq need and deserve our solidarity, and we announce tonight that U.S. law and the IBAW, the Iraq vets, are going to be circulating a letter to Congress asking them to sign a letter that goes to the Iraqi government and to the President of the United States and Secretary Clinton to register their opposition. We have submitted a resolution on it.
Glen Ford of Black Agenda Report warns that the upcoming October 2nd demonstration in Washington, D.C. might become just cheers for Obama. We have to think of ways to prevent it.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm Glen Ford. I'm here to speak for Black Agenda Report. Black Agenda Report is also part of the Black is Back Coalition, which was formed back in September of last year. And by November 7th of last year, we were able to put together a march on the White House involving about 250 people. Most of us in the Black is Back Coalition are confident that the movement does not need some magic wand or killer application, mostly because such things don't exist. What we do need are organizations that are willing to confront power, willing to identify who the enemy is and to call them out, to make sense of emerging realities to as many people as we can reach, and to involve as many people as possible in forceful and sustained opposition to those who do harm to the people. A real movement breeds a culture of resistance, a widely held belief that it is right to resist, that it is virtuous to speak truth to power. That culture of resistance is what made Black America the most reliably progressive anti-war demographic in the United States. It was not that Black people were smarter than anybody else. We were just less confused. We had a better and a clearer idea of who the enemy was. That was yesterday. Today, our job is exponentially more difficult because Black people, who were not too long ago the collective rock of progressivism, are more confused about some things than most everybody else. In the real world, Blacks have been pushed to an even lower level of hell by the Great Recession on top of the previous recession. It has been an unmitigated disaster in which blacks have fared far worse than every other major group. But the Pew poll shows conclusively that blacks are the most upbeat about the economy of all groups, and that a large proportion actually believe that they are better off than before the Great Recession. This is madness. And this madness, this great historical anomaly, can all be explained in one word. What's the word? Obama. It turns out that Obama is the killer application for the other side. He is their secret weapon. His very presence in the White House is a narcotic, a hallucinogen that causes all of the so-called traditional base of the Democratic Party to lose contact with some degree of reality. But it is most destructive in Black America. It was as this great crisis of the Black American polity was unfolding that the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations came into being. It was clear to the coalition that unless and until Obama's pass is revoked in the Black community, we could not be able to organize effectively. For Black is Back, breaking the Obama spell is the must-do task for a renewed movement for social justice and for peace. And there is nothing complicated about it. You simply tell the truth. Obama works for Wall Street and the militarists. That is the truth. If we play around with these essential truths, we defeat ourselves. The definition of defeat is a Black America that is asleep. Right now, there is a determined effort to use the Tea Party's white nationalist ravings to mobilize a circling of the Black wagons around Obama, thus diverting attention from the fact that Obama works for Wall Street and the militarists. Those same forces will try to morph the NAACP and organized labor's October 2nd march in Washington into a rah-rah rally for Obama and the Democrats. We at the Black is Back Coalition anticipate that this conference will endorse the October 2 march, and we agree, and we will participate unless that is made impossible. We believe that there are many NAACPs. In fact, NAACP activists have been part of the Black is Back Coalition from the very beginning. And we believe that we should encourage those chapters and those individuals that are serious about speaking truth to power. And the same thing goes for labor. But when we march, no matter who we march with, we must speak the truth. And Obama must get no pass, because that is to give a pass to war and to Wall Street. Thank you.